Hello, everyone. I wanted to do a quick teaching on spiritual warfare in the context of whether or not we are actually ready for spiritual warfare. Because as I go deeper and deeper into prayer and the subject matter of spiritual warfare, I noticed that a lot of us are not ready. Even myself, at one point, I was not ready. I thought I knew what spiritual warfare was. I thought I had a grip on it. I called myself a prayer warrior until I entered into realms that I did not even know existed, and I was not ready. And I wanted to share some things with you in hopes that it will help you in your prayer time and in whatever ground you are trying to gain with regards to spiritual warfare and prayer itself. So first, what is warfare? Warfare is a struggle between competing entities. Warfare is definitely, I want to say war is ongoing. The difference between war and warfare is that war is the conflict between the groups which want to defeat each other through killing each other, and warfare is the means by which the war is fought. Some examples of the weapons of war, and now this is a natural war that would be fought. You have flamethrowers, you have mortars, artillery, poison gas, tanks, aircraft, things of that nature. This is in natural war. In natural war, there is something called a reconnaissance mission. A reconnaissance mission is an active mission concerned with the enemy terrain and or weather. It seeks out enemy positions, obstacles, and routes. Now, the reconnaissance mission includes zone recon, which is conducted within a specific zone which is identified by boundaries. This is normally associated with a deliberate attack. Then there's the area recon, which is conducted to obtain information concerning a specific location and the area immediately around it. Then there is the route recon. It is conducted to obtain information on the route and terrain from which the enemy could influence movement along the route. We as believers in Jesus Christ are engaging in a spiritual war with an opposing kingdom, which is the kingdom of darkness. As in war, the struggle or conflict is unrelenting, and we need to constantly be alert and vigilant about protecting our borders, which may be our life, our heart, our mind, etc. However, contrary to the other types of war, the weapons of our warfare are not tangible. 2 Corinthians 10 verses 4 through 5 states, "For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God, to the pulling down of strongholds, casting down imaginations, and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Christ, and having a readiness to revenge all disobedience when your obedience is fulfilled." So we are definitely fully equipped for this battle. That's the first thing we need to understand. The next question is, how well do we understand our opponent, the enemy? How well have we studied the scriptures in order to be able to understand the movement and patterns of our enemy? How much time have we spent in prayer in an effort to reach deeper realms of prayer and engage our enemies directly in spiritual battle? There are realms and levels of prayer, and there are realms and level of warfare. In order to enter into the deeper or the deepest realms of warfare, we must be equipped by putting on the whole armor of God, which can be found in Ephesians the 6th chapter, the 13th through the 18th verse. If we do not take advantage of all of the resources God has allowed for spiritual warfare, we will definitely be defeated. At some point in the future, I will definitely do a teaching on the deeper realms of the spirit, but I just wanted to keep this base and give you an outline. Once you enter into certain realms of spiritual warfare and you are not equipped, issues not being surrendered to God, that's what being not equipped means. The enemy will commence to tearing you apart. And this you can be sure of. This is definitely not a joke. Spiritual warfare is not a joke. War itself is not a joke. You come on the enemy's territory in any other place, they're going to try to take you out. We have to understand in spiritual warfare, we are invading the enemy's territory in order to change the constitution of whatever area he has taken residence in. The enemy, according to the scriptures, is the prince and the power of the air. You'll find that in Ephesians 2, verse 2. And he is not going to give over his territory without a fight. Most of us say we are prayer warriors and we engage in spiritual warfare, but we do not know what real spiritual warfare is. It's more than binding and loosing and speaking in tongues. I have to share the experience that I had. I thought, as I said in the beginning, I thought I was a prayer warrior. I thought I could war in the spirit because I was accustomed to binding and loosing and seeing the effects of what I prayed. And, not always, but, sometimes it would take time, but sometimes right away I saw. So I thought I understood the legalities, and I was studying the scriptures to find out the laws and how things worked. And I thought I was pretty much on my way to where I needed to be until one night, actually 1 week, I decided to fast and pray for the entire week. And I decided to intensify my prayer. And I wound up praying between, from 8 to 9 every night. And I did this for 7 days. I didn't do an entire dry fast. I did a fast where I fasted from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. because of the fact that I didn't want to go all day because I'm not able to pray in the day. And I really wanted to dedicate myself to prayer while I was giving up the food. So from 8 to 9 p.m. I prayed. Then I prayed again from 12 to 1. And then I prayed again maybe from like 2 to 4 or 3 to 5, something, around something like that. So I was doing good, and I said, and I did not feel any opposition. I said, God, what is it? Is my prayer? Because I know when you pray and you're gaining ground, you feel opposition. And I said, God, I'm not feeling you. I'm not feeling an answer. I don't feel anything. I'm not sensing anything going on in the spiritual realm. And I know you're not always able to sense things, but a lot of times I am able to sense what's going on. So I felt in my mind, and that's why we have to put on the whole armor of God, the helmet of salvation. It began, for me, the attack began in the mind and in the enemy. And if he will take the weakest thing to use against you, if it's your health, he'll take that. If it's your mind, he'll take that. Whatever he can use against you when you're trying to gain ground on his territory. So I started to get little thoughts like, oh, this is not working. There's no reason for me to continue. And the thing that I was praying about, I started to get little thoughts about that, discouraging thoughts. But, that's something that can happen day to day. So, I just let it pass. Next night, I felt the same thing after I prayed. I didn't feel it too much when I was praying, but after I prayed, I laid down. My last prayer, actually in between prayer times, I felt that little voice, there's just no reason, you should just give it up. And I said, I understood now that I must have been gaining ground, because this thing had come again. And I was fully into prayer, fully wanting God to do it, and this voice came out of, I don't want to say out of nowhere because it came from somewhere, but it wasn't something that was on my mind. I was not discouraged during my prayer time. And then as the prayer started to, I started to intensify the prayer. And one night I reached a level where I must have come into a realm. And because like we don't understand, and I'm still learning, we don't understand the spiritual realm, and we can't see what's going on, but there is a whole world that's going on. And when we keep praying, we break through certain realms. That's why we need to persist in prayer, because we need to come from one realm to another in order to be able to pass through what is set up by the prince and the power of the air. So I have reached a certain realm where the enemy just went ballistic on me. And I really don't want to get too deep into like the whole realm things, because that's not the point of this. But I reached a place where I guess it was not comfortable for him. So the thoughts began, I was praying for something. And the thoughts against, now at this point I was praying in tongues. I was not even praying in English. So we know when we pray in tongues, that's your heavenly language, and that is a direct channel to you and God, where the enemy cannot understand what you're saying. So he's not understanding the language that you're speaking, so he cannot intercept what you're saying. But at that point, I was speaking in tongues about something, and I think I may have said one or two English things. And from that point, the attack was ridiculous. I mean, the thoughts that came into my mind to shut down my prayer. I had one thought that was so strong against what I was praying. It came into my mind like a flood. The Bible says when the enemy comes in like a flood, it came into my mind like a flood, and it debilitated me. I actually had to stop praying. I had to stop praying, and I had to sit down, and I had to think about that thing. It interrupted me. So the level to where I had reached was now, my prayer was interrupted. So I had to start over from the lower level to reach back up to where I was before in the level of prayer, because I stopped. When prayer intensifies, the level of warfare intensifies. And by that thought stopping me, I actually had to sit down and I had to stop, and I thought about it. And I thought about that thing for a while, and then I shook it off, and then I went back. But the level of intensity by which I was praying was I didn't return to that level. The prayer after that was just base. So okay, that happened. The next night I came and I was in warfare. Do you know that everything that I built up, the enemy came right back again with that same thing. The only thing is I was a little smarter this time, and I pushed past the thoughts because I understood what was going on. I pushed past the thoughts. But what he did was he kept on going through my prayer with those thoughts, even though I pushed past, because he understood that that was a weakness for me. He understood that the mind, he got me in the thoughts, and that was a weakness for me. So he waited. Well, actually, he didn't wait. He kept on until my prayer time was over. And then came the onslaught of thoughts. And then the thing that I was praying about, I felt such discontent in my heart. I don't even know if that's a word, but I felt uneasy. I started to hate the situation that I was praying about, and I wound up praying against, speaking words against everything that I had just prayed, just because of the thoughts that were in my head, because of the relentless barrage of stuff that was coming in my head. I nullified every prayer that I prayed that night with regard to that thing, because I had reached a realm that I wasn't ready for. I was not ready for that realm, and the enemy took me and beat me over my head. And then I had to start again from square one. And I remember the next day, my fast had ended. He continued on to the next day with that stuff to make sure that I did not go back into prayer and build that thing up again. He caused me with all the thoughts to want to tear it down. Everything that I prayed, he wanted me to keep on speaking negatively against it and thinking negatively against it. And we know that there is power in our words. Death and life are the power of the tongue. So everything that I had built up in prayer, I spoke against it and tore it down. And that's only scratching the surface of spiritual warfare, because I was not ready for that. I was not ready for that. And because my mind was the battlefield for the enemy, because that's where I was weak, because my weak point was there, he took that. And because I didn't put on the helmet of salvation, and I didn't surrender that part of me that was broken to him, the enemy took that and had a field day and tore my prayer, and all of the progress that I made in prayer tore it apart. So I am actually sharing this with you because it was something that I came to understand that was true. We need to be ready to go into spiritual warfare. We need to understand who our enemy is. We need to understand what our weapons are. We need to understand the legalities of what we are doing. We need to understand the boundaries, where we can go and how far we can go. And if we go past a certain point, how we must be equipped, because everything is not the same in war. In war, you go into certain zones and you have to, certain places you can go into with just a gun, because you understand that what's coming against you is not that heavy. It's not going to be that potent. But then there's other places in war where you have to go in with a tank. And I don't know much about war, but I know some base things. And you have to go in with the tank because you know you have to be fortified in order to take down whatever you're trying to take down, or take over whatever you're trying to take over. So, like I said, this is not an in-depth teaching on the spiritual realms or anything like that, but I just wanted to share with you these few facts. We definitely need to be ready for spiritual warfare. We can win. We just have to take advantage of the tools that God has given us. I hope that you are blessed. Have a blessed day.